So today on Nature's Always Right, I'm gonna share a farm design mistake that I made right here and share with you the most important concept to understand about farm design and setting up everything on your property. So you might recognize this area from where I inoculated my mushroom logs and let them sit. Now, in the beginning, I thought this was a great location because it's so close to the house for harvesting. But as time went on and we needed to actually set up the A-frame style for harvesting and having a better mushroom setup, I realized this is not a good spot. So let me share with you the most important concept to understand when designing a farm, a homestead, or even a small backyard garden, and that is P.A. Yeoman's scale of permanence. So all my regenerative farming nerds and permaculture people out there, you're gonna know P.A. Yeoman because he's a very famous Australian farmer who invented the keyline plow, which is incredible for large-scale water infiltration and land design that you should go check out if you're interested in that sort of thing. But he created this scale of permanence, which I think is one of the best ways to think about your land and planning out what goes where. So he came up with the original 8 design concepts. They have changed a little bit here and there over the years, but the 8 things that he came up with in this scale are things that are basically impossible to change, all the way down to things that are very easy to change. So that almost impossible thing to change would be climate, then landscape, water, your roads, trees, structures, fences, and then soil. So each one of those things on the list, as you go down, it gets easier to change those things. So when you're thinking about setting up your farm, further up on that scale, your land shape and your water supply, so like doing earthworks with tractors and changing the way water flows on your property, those are things that are difficult, expensive. You only want to do that once, and it takes a lot of planning. Now you get down to soil, we know we can change soil in just a season. It's pretty easy to convert it into extremely good soil. So I highly recommend studying that concept. I'll put a link down below to a Cornell article about this concept. That'll give you some more context. So how does this apply to my property? One big example would be my electric fence setup that I did for my sheep and my goats. So you've seen I just run a single wire around the perimeter that I connect my nets to. That's like the cheapest possible setup I could do. It's temporary, so that in the future, I'm going to know the exact place for a permanent fence. I've already changed the way that shape looks of that fence multiple times. And the same goes with these mushrooms. I didn't set up any infrastructure here. All I did was put pallets and put the logs on the ground. And then I waited, I learned more about mushrooms, and I thought about the future. So now let's go over to my new area. I'm gonna show you how I set it all up for the mushrooms and then how that's gonna be a way better system for doing my mushroom logs. And guys, I can't recommend to you enough to start your own mushroom logs. It took about 6-7 months and we're getting shiitakes, tons of them. Like we have a boatload of shiitakes every day now, and it is just such a good food source. So highly recommend you guys. We're going into winter. Check out my video about how to do it yourself. In winter is the best time to harvest your logs and inoculate them. Okay, let's go check out the new spot. I'm gonna show you everything. So let me show you why we chose this location and why it's pretty ideal. So the main thing that we're looking for in here is flat ground and a ton of shade. So if we look up, we've got lots of nice, big, huge trees. And it doesn't matter what time of year, we're gonna get good shade. Our home, right over there, so it's not too far. So for the daily harvest, we can just walk straight out. Our other shed is there. And I will be easily able to have a little road to drive right in here to drop off the logs, to move things, or to bring in heavy things. At that location that's way over there, I can't drive my truck down into there, which is problematic. Coming back over here where you see all of that barley grass, that's where the pigs were. So the area that I'm currently standing, no animal has gone here yet. Okay, and then coming back around. As we get deeper, where the mushrooms are actually going to be sitting, this area here, actually, there's a lot of younger trees. So what we're gonna do is just come in and thin out all the undergrowth, anything that's gonna get, 6 feet and lower, so I don't have to hit it with my head. So everything above will provide shade. We'll have a nice working area. I'm gonna remove little trees where, there really only should be one tree, but 3 are coming out of the same spot. I'll probably take those down to just 1, maybe 2, if it's gonna help me with shade. So in here, I'm gonna select trees that over time, I know are gonna get much bigger, like these, and provide a much more shade. Speaking of, there's another dead guy. We're just gonna get him out of there. And then this fresh young one can grow up in its place to provide some of that shade. So these are the things that I'm doing. So as you look this way, the ground actually slopes off and goes down that way. So this really made a natural kind of corner here for us to go this way. So then all the way back through here is super, super shady. And then there's kind of this little gully thing right there. So we'll stop at that edge, and that's gonna give us this gigantic area. So we'll be able to store mushrooms once we've inoculated while they're waiting for a year. We'll also be able to have like an A-frame set up out here for harvesting. And maybe I even set up a better inoculation area over here too. But this will be like a full service area for all the mushroom stuff. So whether we end up doing it as part of a business in the future, or this is just for home production and maybe small scale sales, that we can really grow with this area. Whereas the other area that we selected at first won't work out. Okay, and then to do all this work, I'm gonna use mostly hand tools, believe it or not. Just my Felco pruners, loppers. I'll bring my chainsaw in here and my Forester tool setup just to hit things that are really easy. Like a lot of this lower ground growth stuff, I'm not gonna bend over and like clip all that. But when it comes to pruning out the trees and deciding on shade stuff, I'm gonna do that by hand so that I can make a wise decision. When I have a power tool in my hand, I'm just like, take it all down, let's get rid of it. Okay, so for that, I'm gonna start with that and do some of this little stuff. I hopefully won't even need the chainsaw except for a few things. And then the rest will just be loppers, and I'll just take my time, observe the light, think about where the sun position is at all times of year so we can get total shade in here, and we don't have to do like supplemental shade type stuff. Okay guys, we got our T-post in, so now we just need to set up the line that all the logs are going to lay onto. This is some aircraft cable. I use this for my market garden. I recommend when you buy this, do not get the vinyl coated. That deteriorates over time. It will flake off onto your soil. You don't want that. I will leave maybe a little bit of extra length, so in case there is too much weight, I don't think that's going to be the case, but if there is, the T-posts will start bowing in on each other. And what I'll do is, I'll just take a piece of rebar, hit it into the ground, and then attach the aircraft cable down from the T-post down to the ground. This is what I did to stabilize, 150 tomatoes on one or a couple lines. So now I need to figure out how high to place this. I brought over my shortest log, and we'll do it according to that size so this thing can lean up against. Pretty simple though. So I've got these wire insulators that were on these T-posts that were left on the property from the previous owner. So I'm gonna utilize these to rest this line on. Otherwise I'd have to use something else or pull it back here and then rebar it into the ground. Okay guys, what do you think? The A-frame is pretty awesome, isn't it? Isn't this spot way better than that other spot? And I'm so happy that I didn't try to set up something more permanent over there, because I would have wasted a ton of time taking it up and moving it. So guys, I can't stress enough, think about your project for as long as possible. Design it, draw it out, look at it as an overhead map, you know, really go into detail when you're setting up your property. So this setup is so cool because now we can do everything that has to do with mushrooms here. It's all in one spot and it's still pretty close to the house for daily harvests. We also have the big tote behind me here so that if I want to soak the logs, you can soak them, I believe, for 24 hours, and then that forces the logs to fruit way harder and we'll get even more shiitakes than this. So guys, definitely check out my video descriptions. In every video, I always show you guys what I used to make this, to make it easier for you to find what I used. And I've got links down there to the best companies, whether you want drip irrigation or seeds or tools, greenhouse materials from Bootstrap Farmer. Like, the best people are in there, and that's a way you can support this channel at no cost to you. And guys, sign up for my email list as well. I have that down there. It says join my newsletter.